Hey y'all, I promised I would do another video soon. This is part one of my testimony. I figured I'd start out by telling a little bit of my story so that you guys will know that everything that I teach on, everything that I speak about, I've been through. And that I not only have personal experience, but professional experience as I'm in my office right now. I've been where I am in the state in the Pacific Northwest for most of my life, for over 40 years. And when I got here, my mom brought us here from New York City because she didn't want me to get hooked on drugs. That didn't work out so well. And by the time I was 13, which is the age of rebellion, according to God's word, I started out with the gateway drugs like alcohol, weed. It didn't take me long to go to experimental drugs in a whole bunch of other areas, right? By the time I was 15, I was having so many problems at home with my mom and my rebellion that she decided to, for me to go over to my grandma's house. And my grandma lived in the hood. So within, I don't know, maybe a year, I was on crack. I had already had a baby by the time I was 16. She's 36 years old now. And life was getting a little crazy. I've been sexually assaulted. I've been physically assaulted. I've been in toxic, abusive relationships. Yeah, I had my first baby when I was about 16 years old. And I moved back in with my mom because life was getting a little out of control over there. I was buck wild, right? And by the time my daughter was 4, I moved back over to the hood. And, I was still using drugs off and on. By the time she was 2, I did decide that I needed to finish my education, right? Like, because back then it was like 1989, 1990, and it was not cool to have a GED, right? It was not cool. So I went to school, and I went to this alternative school. And it was cool school because, they had daycare right there on the premises. And so that was really, really a blessing. And I was able to get my high school diploma in 2 years because I had dropped out in the 8th grade when I started using. And so I moved back in with my mom, and I accomplished that. I went to school. I started college, and I only lasted about a quarter or a semester. And then I moved back over to the neighborhood, and then stuff really started getting wild. My daughter was sexually assaulted by her uncle, and I did not know this until about 8.5 years ago. She walked around with that her whole life without telling anybody. I'm not going to tell you who my daughter is for her protection and her safety. But I have been through a lot of things. And I ended up moving away from there and going back to my mother's house again. And we lived in like a suburban part of Seattle, the greater Seattle area. And then I started using real heavy to the point to where my mom she had my daughter, my oldest daughter. And I was using real heavy, and I was getting myself in all kinds of scenarios, fighting all the time, drug dealing, drug using. I mean, I've done every kind of drug you could think of from the year 1983 till 2012. Um, yeah. And, after some time, I actually ended up losing my parental rights of my oldest daughter. I never got them back, but she was always with family, so I was always able to see her. I always made efforts to see her. She always wanted to see her mom. I just couldn't get it together. I couldn't. I couldn't get it together. I was young. I was hot, right? Um, and life was falling apart. Um, my parental rights were terminated she was about 8, I want to say. Um, and she was still at my mother's house. Then she went from my mother's house to her uncle's house, her father's brother. She went from there to my aunt's house in Texas. She has lived in so many different places and with so many different people and so many different family members. Um, in the meanwhile, the whole time I'm out doing drugs, I mean, I have done something strange for a little piece of change. Now, though, I'm in alignment for God's assignment. So, um, everything that has been done to me, everything that I have experienced up until even just a few months ago, has led me to what I'm supposed to be doing, which is having a platform, starting a business, helping women in particular, men as well, heal and grow, um, and to coach and counsel those who have been through domestic violence, drug addiction. We're going to cover all kinds of topics on this platform. Spirituality, spiritual relationships, kingdom wives, kingdom husbands. We're gonna explore it all. So if you guys like have a comment or you have a request that you want me to do a whole video about, just let me know, and we'll get that started, right? So for me, even between like 1990 and 1994, is a complete and total blur. Like, I did so much drugs, I still don't remember 1990 to 1994. I started remembering things when I found out I was pregnant. I was so high all the time that I didn't realize that I hadn't even had a cycle for 3 months. That's how gone I was, right? I was just doing the most. I was doing the most. That was my first attempt at recovery, real attempt at recovery. I went to treatment, and my baby, my youngest daughter now, beautiful, beautiful girls. Both my girls are very beautiful, intelligent women. She almost died because she was withdrawing in my tummy, in my womb. And I remember telling the treatment staff that I could not be released from treatment into the area that I was familiar with. And, well, they didn't seem to believe me. So they released me back into a shaky area for me. And I lasted about a week. I went right back to treatment and said I had a relapse and I need to come back in. And because I was pregnant, of course, they let me right back into treatment. And and through this, neither one of the relationships was healthy. Like my youngest daughter, her dad, I was just a kid. I was a teenage mom, right? So I had no clue what I was doing. However, it is a blessing because his family is still involved in her life, and she is in her 30s, her late 30s. So, um, my next daughter, her father he killed himself. We'll get to that part, but like I said, I'm gonna have to do this in parts. because it you know, I it gets emotional for me. And it takes a lot to get on a platform and publicly post your story, right? But I wanted to start doing this to let my viewers and future viewers and subscribers and clients and coaches and all that stuff that um, um, I can empathize to the highest degree. So I went back to treatment again, and I ended up being, they found a place for me, treatment place for pregnant women, about 30 miles outside of my normal using area. And so that was exactly what I needed at that time. And so I ended up having my second child clean, and stayed clean for almost 5 years. The problem is I didn't stay clean, because the reason I got clean basically was because I didn't want to have a drug addicted baby. And I wanted my attempt was to be the woman, the mommy for her that I wasn't for my oldest. And that didn't, turn out either. The bottom line is when you get clean and you're in recovery. So for those who are out there and you're using and life seems bleak, you may not even want to wake up tomorrow. I'm here to tell you as a living testimony that you can do it. It has to be for you, though. Not for your husband, not for your mom, not for your kids, your mama, your daddy. It will go for a while, but at some point you have to realize that it's for you and no one else, you and your God. And so, I did not stay clean. I relapsed after almost 5 years. And that was the first time that my youngest daughter had never seen me loaded. And then she did. Pretty heartbreaking stuff for her to see. She went and stayed with my sister. My sister was in school full time and working. My grandmother was there too. Rest in peace. I love my grandma and my mama. They are both deceased. And she was only 4 or 5 years old. She was heartbroken. And the whole time I'm dealing with my oldest one as well, who was heartbroken as well, because she couldn't figure out how come, my mom wants this child and not me. What's wrong with me, when there was nothing wrong with her. I was trying to fix it through my youngest daughter, and it just didn't work out like that. So I think I'm gonna stop there, and I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna do part 2, because it starts getting interesting. So this is part 1 of Larky's testimony. Please like, share, subscribe, all of that. And like I said, put some stuff in the comments. If you have ideas on topics that you want me to do, you let me know. It could be, just throw whatever out there. But trust me, I've been through it, been there, done that. So nothing is going to sound super weird to me. If it's DV, drugs, spirituality, kingdom husbands, kingdom wives, demonic attacks, whatever you want to talk about, pretty sure we can talk about it. All right. So I will see you guys soon with part 2.